I am the villain in this story. I think that everyone needs to accept at some point in their life that they are the villain in someone's story, because you can't always be the good guy, and that's okay. But this is the story of how I met my husband. So, a little background. I am proudly queer. My high school sweetheart was a girl, we'll call her Betty, and we dated on and off for years until we leaned into lesbian stereotypes and decided to just be friends, but also platonically move in together. So we move in together, and in the unbeknownst to me, whenever she wasn't dating me, and this is no hate on her, she's a lovely person, she was talking to this person named Sam, and it was years that I had heard whisper of his name, but I had never met him. We just never occupied the same space. So in 2015, they were in an on-again portion, and I drove up in my Volkswagen Bug, parked my car at our row home on Philly Street, and the skinniest, nerdiest white dude you've ever seen in your life scares me because he's coming out of my house to Betty's car, and I'm trying to go into my house. So we introduce ourselves. Turns out this is Sam, and we go inside. Betty crawls back into his arms, and we start talking. And then it happens. The warning sign that changed my entire life. He looked at me, and he said some stupid, punny joke, and it clicked. And in my brain, I said to myself, well, shit, I'm going to ruin my whole life for this man. He's it. A few days later, we start texting, and then in like 2 weeks, it's Betty's birthday. And I had honest intentions. I recognize now I had some subconscious ulterior motives. We ended up hanging out at my house. We got pizza and beer, and we watched Bob's Burger all night, expecting Betty to come home because it was her birthday. And she had picked up a shift at work, and I didn't know. So Sam and I now consider that our first date. So several things happen over the course of the next few weeks. Sam and I quickly become obsessed with each other. Betty and him start distancing themselves from each other, and then Betty finds out that Sam and I are kind of talking. She's obviously very upset, and it is one of the most difficult things I've ever had to forgive myself for, because she was my first friend when I moved to Pennsylvania, and she was really important to me, and I chose a guy. There is a happy ending. So we end up, Sam and I end up falling in love long distance because he actually has to go to Florida for several months to help an ailing family member. And he comes back up on March 23rd, 2016. He gets onto a train car in Florida and takes a 24-hour train ride up the coast under a leaky roof so that he can come back and ask me to be his girlfriend. 3 years later to the day, we got married in Cherry Lane and partied all night in our reception at Central Market. So this story has always been something that is, the controversy thing that I pull out of my pocket at parties, and I'm like, oh, look at this crazy thing I did, and now I'm married to the guy. This is nuts. But recently I've been thinking a lot about the fact that we now have 2 daughters. They're 2.5 and 8 months, and they are amazing. But I am going to one day have to tell them the unabridged tale of us getting together and what that meant for me as a queer person being in a straight passing relationship, what that meant for me as a person who has feminist tattooed on my arm, but actively chose my husband over sisterhood. And I just think that I will end up reminding them that life and love and relationships are complicated, and that warning signs are there so that you stay on the right path. But when we make mistakes, it's okay, because sometimes it's worth it.